County's prosecuting attorney, Jerry Jarzynka. Hi, Jerry.
Bart, good to see you again.
Good to see you as well.
Yes.
Welcome back. We've got a number of cases to talk about. But first, I will mention that Jerry and I talked before the show, and Jerry's involved in a legal proceeding about Roe v. Wade and the state of Michigan's abortion laws. And of course, we all see what's happening in Washington today with the the leak of a potential ruling or opinion by the Supreme Court. Jerry's going to come back in a future show, and we'll be talking about that, Roe v. Wade, and all those ramifications later. So stay tuned for that. So you've been busy. You've got some cases. I know our viewers are interested. We've got some major trials. One, that shocking triple murder in Grass Lake.
Yes, Bart, I'm glad you asked that question. Basically, that happened last August. It was on Grass Lake Township. Defendant Zachary Borton ended up having just over a 2-week trial that concluded really the first week in April. And he was convicted of first-degree murder, second-degree murder, felony firearms second offense, and stealing a credit card, financial transaction device. And he was just sentenced yesterday. And Judge McBain did the sentencing, did a great job. The penalty for first-degree murder conviction is life in the Department of Corrections without the possibility of parole. So we're very pleased with that result. The jury ended up on one of the victims, Edward Kanzler, could not come to an agreement on that count. So they were hung on that count. So now our office really is looking at, are we going to retry the case on that count or not? Obviously, a lot goes into that decision. There's a lot of work that went into the trial. That was a very extensive trial. And also, too, for that victim's family and all the families of the two victims, that's a very emotional experience, too. So it's not just a simple matter of we're going to retry on that count. You have to sit down and think about all the different aspects of that before reaching that decision.
Yeah, because I think an outsider would say, well, he's in jail for the rest of his life. Whether he's convicted on another case at another time would have no bearing on really the sentence, right?
Correct.
So it sounded like his defense was either self-defense or he was concerned for his own life. The jury didn't buy that.
They did not buy that, Bart, and especially with the one victim for the first-degree murder, Delmar Fraley. Given the number of gunshot wounds and the location of the wounds, certainly indicated that that was not self-defense. Actually, they were basically gunshots or kill shots to basically murder this victim and prevent that person from being a witness to what transpired at the house that night. So the jury didn't buy that. There was tremendous amount of evidence, from crime scene technicians as well as the physical evidence at the scene that all pointed to that result. So, in this case, the jury did their job. That was quite a trial. It's over 2 weeks. That's quite a sacrifice of your time to come there, to listen to the evidence, and then a deliberation. You've got to listen to the legal instructions from the judge, and then you've got to apply them to the facts or evidence presented, and then reach a decision that's unanimous. So they did a great job, but that's a really tough job for anyone to come in. And remember, they had to look at the scenes of the bodies at the scene. That's very gruesome, very grisly. So that's tough to do as well.
And so, there was one or two of the gentlemen were seniors, elderly, and so it was, I think that was shocking to so many. But so do we really know why this guy shot these people?
No, we don't. We didn't really have a definite motive. There was some theory that perhaps this was a dispute over a woman living at the house. But it was just speculative. There was nothing really definite.
All right. You also had a couple of other deaths that were in the court. One a manslaughter and one second-degree murder verdict. Both of those have ended.
Yeah, talk about jury trials. You know, we started up jury trials last August, and then we paused around. We got to December, January, into part of February because of COVID surge. And at the end of February, we started doing jury trials again. They really picked up in March, and so really, as we got into April, in the span of about 5 weeks, we had 3 murder trials, back to back to back. After the trial with Zachary Borton, we then went with Darvin Cole, and then the following week we had Mackenzie Quarles, both murder cases. In Darvin Cole, the jury came back guilty of manslaughter. This was the victim, Scott Chuck Charles. There's a dispute regarding a girlfriend was involved. I think that ultimately the jury, looking at the evidence, weighed everything and came back with that verdict. Manslaughter, which is a 15-year felony, correct. And then the following week we had Mackenzie Quarles, which the victim was Krishana Walker. All 3 of these cases happened in 2021 or 2021. And this was a case where what a tragic case, it was in a residence, a parking lot, a driveway, where the victim came out and it confronted the defendant in her car, and during that argument, the defendant pulled out a handgun and shot and killed Krishana Walker. Ultimately, the jury convicted Walker of the charge of murder. It was second degree. And interesting, the defense in that case, we thought it was going to be self-defense, but obviously Krishana Walker was unarmed, and so that would have been difficult. So it changed as the trial started. Defense changed to identification. And so we had a front seat passenger who had testified at the preliminary exam, identifying Mackenzie Quarles as the shooter. But fortunately, that passenger stayed consistent with their testimony that it was Mackenzie Quarles, and of course, the jury agreed with that.
Witnesses vital in that conviction.
Yeah, so we're really pleased with that result. And then we actually had the Nicole Jolie case set for jury trial. It was been this week, May 2nd, to start. And then we had a plea on that case this past Friday to third-degree arson, which is a 10-year felony. And that case, as you know, has been one that's been going on for some time. It started in 2017, so it's almost 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
It was delayed by COVID, also delayed by, there was an appeal to the Court of Appeals, and then a leave to appeal to the Michigan Supreme Court before it finally came to a trial date. So.
Yeah, and that case we're talking about is LGBTQ activist Nikki Jolly, who was accused and now has pleaded no contest to setting his house on fire, basically, right?
Correct, yes. Done willfully. That's a felony arson conviction. And as you recall, when this started, a defendant was saying this was a hate crime. And immediately the City of Jackson Police Department called in the FBI. They immediately investigated, looked at it, and it turned out it was not a hate crime. And as the case went along, as the investigation went along, it pointed out clearly that the defendant is the one who set the fire, and ultimately that was the cause.
Yeah, he maintained his innocence right along and claimed that he was targeted in a hate crime, but there's apparently they had no insurance on the property, so it wasn't for money. What do we know in his plea of no contest?
Well, what happened was there was some insurance. The property owner did get money for the house that was destroyed by the fire, and did get compensated for that part. However, whenever there's a house that's gets destroyed by fire, there's got to be a cleanup or demolition, and so there may be some charges owed the city for the demolition cost, for that property owner. But why the defendant decided to set that, there's been some theory as to why, but no no definite decision on that.
And pets were killed.
They were.
You would assume they were beloved family pets, and they were killed in the fire. So I think that confused a lot of people as to what really went on here.
Correct. Yeah. Well, and I have to give my hats off to the City of Jackson Police Department, in particular Lieutenant Holly Rose, who was a detective at the time, and then also assigned Detective Aaron Grove. They poured a lot of time and effort investigating the case, so much so that we could charge that and prosecute that successfully. So they did a great job.
Real quick, a couple other items. The Summit to Reduce Violence, you participated in that, and there's more to come, right?
There is actually, the Summit to Reduce Violence was held on April 8th. Very successful event. There was over 200 people attended. We had a number of students from Jackson High School. Great participation. And in fact, we had our first work group meeting on April 21st. The next one's going to be July 14th. Really have some really dedicated people who are participating, and also the co-chairs for each work group. So we're really excited. I think we're going to see some grassroots activity, ideas from the community, how to reduce violence.
And lastly, there were concerns in the, I think at least the Columbia School District of some bomb scares called in or reported. What does law enforcement and prosecution do in response to that?
Bart, I'm glad you asked that, because I did participate in a town hall at Columbia High School this past Tuesday night, for parents who are concerned about threats reported the last, 4 or 5 weeks at the school. So, my position is, as the prosecutor, if we get a case submitted by local police officers or police agencies, we're going to take them seriously, those threats. And if we can charge them, we will. We're going to be aggressive in those cases. And in fact, after we had the Oxford High School shooting last November 30th, I did contact the superintendents and get on their calendar for the superintendent's meeting to speak last December 17th. I also updated my school threats letter to include Oxford, and invited all the superintendents to send out this letter to all the parents who have kids in their school districts, just to remind them that even if kids may think that they can have a joke about a threat, we will still prosecute that seriously. And there's different charges, including felony charges, that are serious and really can impact your life if you get adjudicated in juvenile court for those threats, even if they're false. So it was a great discussion. I think the parents there came, got a lot of good answers from the school administration, as well. Local law enforcement there was Chief Niles from Columbia Township and his officer Jacob Mills. So that went really well. But it's always a concern, whether you're a prosecutor or a police chief, that we don't want to have an Oxford high school shooting incident in Jackson. I mean, you have to be vigilant. You have to take every threat seriously, because if you don't, there could be the one threat that is actually genuine, and you're going to have a tragic event happen.
Sure. Thanks for all the updates.
You're welcome, Bart. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Jackson County Prosecuting Attorney Jarzynka. Stay tuned.